Hello and welcome, everyone. Very excited to have all of you here and excited about this topic. We have a fantastic group here today, and what's really fun is many of you I'm familiar with, and we've got some new people too. So I'm excited to have all of you here. Many of you submitted questions ahead of time, so I do have those questions. To let you know, a couple of them were on different topics unrelated to the focus of today's webinar. I am happy to stay on at the end of the program and answer those additional questions. In the meantime, the ones that are pertinent to this topic, I think we've done a pretty good job of building them in, and of course want to address them as we go. Please do ask additional questions all the way through. You can do that one of two ways. One is to raise your hand so I unmute you and you come in live. And of course, we love it when you do that because it makes it more fun. There's more energy to have more voices in here. The caveat being, yes, we're recording it. It is going to go on our YouTube channel. The other way for you to ask additional questions is to simply type them into the question panel. I will monitor that as we go. So diving into the topic of the day, what is our agenda for this conversation? You probably saw when you registered. We're going to have working definitions for a leader, a mentor, and a coach. We'll talk about how does coaching matter, coaching impact and statistics, backing up the idea of coaching mattering and making a difference. We'll talk about coaching in the workplace. We'll cover tips and techniques. And for those of you that have done training with us, it'll be a great review. For those of you who have not yet done coach training, it'll be some really good information. We'll talk examples of a coaching approach, and then at the end have time for Q&A, review of resources. So thought for all of you before I start with our working definitions. Recently, I had the privilege of going to a Fortune 100 company and working with their leaders. And they were learning coaching skills for the application in the workplace. And the feedback that I got from them in terms of using what they learned in their conversations with their direct reports, with their colleagues, and even with their customers, absolutely fabulous. It makes a difference how we approach every single conversation we have. And to me, it's almost obvious or too obvious that a coaching approach simply makes sense. It's so effective in the interactions we have. So now let's move into our what working definitions. For a leader, I went to dictionary.com. And here's what it says, among other definitions, that a leader is a guiding or directing head. And I think what's important in this definition is the directing piece of it. So yes, a leader guides. Hopefully they're out in front and people are following them. The key is in the workplace, a leader is also seen as somebody who gives that direction. A leader does mentor and coach as well as being in that leadership role. So yes, it makes sense. So what's a mentor? Back to dictionary.com, and our working definition for a mentor is that they are a wise and trusted counselor or leader, an influential senior sponsor or supporter. So it's great to have a mentor. They also give advice. They pass on their wisdom and experience. And yes, a mentor will also lead and coach. So we've got lots of overlap so far. Let's talk about what a coach is. Whatever type of coaching you do, the definition for coaching is a strategic partnership. So here's a key difference. Instead of giving advice, passing on wisdom or experience as you do with the leader or as a mentor, the coach empowers the client. And it is the client who's going to clarify their own goals, create their own action plans, move past obstacles, and choose what the achieve what the client chooses. The difference here, and this is very, very important, a coach does not mentor or lead. So whereas leaders and mentors do coach, mentor, and lead, all three roles, a coach stays in their role specifically. Very important difference. All right, so diving into that difference. A leader or a mentor talks, a coach listens. A leader or a mentor focuses the conversation on their own experience, whereas a coach focuses the conversation on enhancing the skills and outcomes for the other person. So it's focused on that other person. A leader or mentor gives advice. A coach is going to ask questions. A leader or a mentor is the expert with the answers. A coach is the expert at eliciting the answers from the person doing the work. Love to hear your thoughts as I'm giving you these working definitions, and especially knowing some of you have done coach training. Some of you I have no idea. So give me your thoughts on the question panel. Just love to hear what your reaction is to this. So when we talk about coaching mattering, making a difference, how does it matter? Well, it goes back to a really hot topic in the workplace, and that's talent retention. So you've got baby boomers retiring out. We've got multiple generations in the workplace. And one of the challenges in large organizations is keeping really good talent. And the biggest barrier to that is the leaders. The reason people quit their job is not about the company itself. It is about their manager or immediate supervisor. And so a coaching approach makes a huge difference because it changes that dynamic so that the person wants to stay with their organization. You've heard the Gallup poll. I'm guessing many of you have seen this statistic. Let me point something out on this slide. In 2011, the economy was in the tank, and 84% of people were wanting to quit their job. They couldn't because they couldn't find something else. They wanted to. What does that tell you about engagement and productivity? It all speaks to that being such a challenge. Now, the old way of being a leader or a manager in the workplace was, I am the boss, do it my way or hit the highway. Then we transitioned and we got a little bit nicer about it. And the leader said, okay, let me tell you what I think, and you tell me what you think of my idea, which of course is going to be, you like my idea. Or then we progress to, let me tell you what I know, so you follow my example. And again, it's based on their thinking. Now, what works now in today's workplace, especially with the multiple generations, it's when the leader asks people, what are your options for getting results? And truly empowers them. And if you think about it, it makes so much sense. If that person is there in the job, they have the ability to do the job. And if they don't, we got to figure that one out too. So if they're there, they're doing the job, it's about putting them in charge. Recently, I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, at work, I get so busy and people come to me and they want answers and I just give them the answer and they're really happy and they go on their way. And the question becomes, and what are you teaching them to do? You're literally teaching them every time they have a question, instead of figuring it out for themselves, they're going to come to you. They're going to say, hey, tell me how to do this. Tell me the answer to my question. And as long as you will tell them the answer to your question, they will continue to come to you with their questions. So you're literally training dependency. And I get the reason it happens. Think about it in the workplace. Part of it is we have this mentality of, well, I'm in this job because I know this information and I'm supposed to know this information. I'm supposed to tell it to other people. And part of the mentality is, I'm busy. I don't have time to ask them questions so they figure out the answer. And here's the reality of it. They're in that job because they have the ability to do the job. And if you don't take time to ask the question now, it's going to take a lot more time in the long run to be the one answering all the questions all the time. Ultimately, what's really going to work, it's a coaching style of management. It's recognizing that people have the ability to do the work. And if you want to keep good talent, believe in them and believe in their ability to do it. What is the impact of a coaching approach? Well, let's look first at the impact of employee engagement. So business units in the top half on employee engagement double their odds of high performance. Okay, we like that one. Companies in the top 10% on employee engagement, check out this number, bested their competition by 72% earnings per share. 72% simply based on employee engagement. And let's be realistic. If a manager is telling somebody what to do and how to do it, how engaged is the employee? Alternatively, if that manager or leader, supervisor, boss, whichever term you use in your organization, is actually confident in that person's ability to figure it out and do it, conveys that confidence, asks them the questions so they do figure it out, guess what? They're engaged because now they own what they're doing and they own how they're doing it. They feel respected. They feel like they're adding value. And that's how you get engagement. Here's some more. You've all seen the research from Metrics Global, or most of you anyway. One of the more commonly cited studies in coaching. And a 529% return on investment. Phenomenal numbers. It makes you wonder how anyone can afford not to have coaching inside the organization. I really love that next sentence there. When you add the financial benefit of employee retention, you boost the ROI to 788%. What is that telling you about the value, the importance of a coaching style of management? We absolutely have a bottom line impact with that approach. Public personnel management study. When people go to training, you get a 22.4% improvement. When you add coaching, you get an 88% improvement. What does that look like? What's the difference there? Well, let's talk about that for a second. A training program is fabulous. Of course, I'm going to say that I'm a trainer. Okay. So a training program is fabulous for giving people information. What coaching does is then put that person in charge of figuring out, okay, what did you learn? And how are you applying what you learned? And how is that working? And where do you want to adjust? And what are you going to do next? Wherein the individual who has gained the information from the training is now intentionally choosing their own application, creating their own strategies and action plans, and the coach is there as their accountability partner so that they actually follow through and use that information. So of course it's got 4 times the impact on productivity. Because with a coaching, now they're engaged in it, they own it, and they get the follow through. Absolutely powerful. And yes, I got the comment in on, wow, how about those stats? Absolutely. It's phenomenal. So for a coaching style of management, it means it makes sense for every single leader in the workplace to develop coaching skills. It is getting to the point where it is a core competency for anyone in a leadership role. We already know that coaching is a competency area for HR professionals. It's a core competency, according to ATD, for people in talent development, professional trainers, etc. It is absolutely a skill for anybody in a leadership capacity. And of course, the question comes, is it something you can learn on your own or from industry experts? You see, the biggest mistake organizations make is they think, okay, people can do a lot of self-study on this, or they create an internal training program. And the challenge with their internal training program is it's designed by people who haven't completed coach training. And so, yeah, they've got some great stuff that is different than coaching. And they literally don't know what they don't know. So it really is about being intentional. If you're an individual saying, yeah, this makes sense for me, I want to increase my opportunities as a leader, I want to enhance my results as a leader in the workplace, go out and seek a coach, go out and seek the training in coaching skills. If you're in an organization, have influence in terms of what happens with the organizational culture and developing leaders in the organization, coach training is a no-brainer. It absolutely makes sense. Okay, now let's get really specific. How exactly do coaching skills make a difference? So we'll do examples. We'll talk about communication skills. We'll talk about people skills. We'll talk about goal setting, and we'll talk about motivation. And the content that I'm going to use for each of these segments comes straight out of our coach training programs. Now, what I am hoping is to invite some of you to come in and do a role play, having a coaching conversation in the workplace. And it can be pure on coaching, or it can simply be, hey, you're somebody's manager or supervisor, and you want to know how to have this conversation with them using these coaching skills. And ideally, we'll have a chance to role play. So please be thinking about that. Think about what scenario is going to be helpful to you to role play, and think about whether you're brave enough to volunteer, because it's going to help everyone to hear those examples. All right, so we're going to dive into this. The listening skills that make a difference. And again, those of you who have done coach training, this is completely familiar to you. The first one is active listening. And there are many definitions out there. Let's really simplify it. It's about listening with the intention to understand the other person. Because the reality is, most of us are at a place with our listening where we kind of sort of listen. We probably assume we know what they're going to say, or that we've heard it before, whatever it is. Or we're multitasking, thinking about other things. When we set everything else aside and completely focus with the intention to understand the other person, then and only then are we actively listening. A really interesting one that somebody shared recently in one of our classes is talking about how some of us do better with the active listening when we're at work because of the expectations in terms of our role. And so we can turn it on when it's important to do that. And then we get busy and we forget to turn it on. Or we go home and we're decompressing. And the people that are most important to us in our lives are the ones that get the least amount of our full attention. And so that active listening, yes, it takes effort. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. Related very closely with the active listening is when we rephrase. That's about rephrasing what somebody else said. And here's the important notes for rephrasing. If you say it exactly the way they said it, word for word, we call that parroting, and it gets really annoying very quickly. In coaching, what we talk about is a succinct summary, very short, clear, and use the other person's key words. Not everything they said, the key words they used. That way they feel like you really did hear what they said, and it helps with clarity. The benefit of rephrasing for you is it actually requires you to listen. If you're going to have the ability to rephrase what somebody else said, it means you've got to take the time to actually listen to what they said. For the person that you're doing this with, it's a gift because when they hear their own words coming back at them, they know they've been heard and understood, and it helps with their clarity. The third element of really listening that we talk about in coach training is reflective listening. That's reflecting back what that person didn't say, the emotions, whatever else is behind the words. And it really demonstrates to them that you get where they're coming from. Yes, it requires us to completely focus on them. And when you look at coaching and coach training, as we move people into the higher levels, we start focusing on the PCC markers. These are markers from the International Coach Federation that are specific behaviors that are evaluated and assessed when people submit a recording or two with an application for a credential. So the reflective listening is recognizing somebody's energy shift, recognizing their emotions and exploring that. And it's actually a part of the PCC markers that are evaluated. It's an expectation of us as coaches. Now, with just these simple pieces, think about the impact in the workplace. When managers and leaders actually listen to the other people in the organization, it changes outcomes. They actually get what people are saying. They have new insights and understanding and awareness, and it starts changing the opportunities. Another example I can share with you, again, recently came out in one of our discussions in class. And this is where somebody had an employee come in with a complaint, a conversation about that. And they took the time to really listen to what that person was saying and to ask some follow-up questions. And as a result of that, there was another piece to the complaint that hadn't been said yet and changed completely in terms of how it was going to be handled. And that led to a plan that everybody was happy with because that person took the time to listen. It makes a difference all day, every day in the workplace when we really listen. Okay. Another piece of communication is to be solution focused. Well, think about it. We talk about this in coach training. Typically, conversations are about the problem, what people don't want. We get stuck in the negative. In a coaching conversation, the focus is on what people do want it to be and how they're going to make that happen. And so questions that we teach for that solution focus include asking somebody, where are you now? Because the message behind it is, hey, wherever you were, whatever happened, that's over. That's history. We're not going to change history. So let's start with where you're at right now. And then let's figure out, where do you want to go? And when you know where you want to go, your next step is to figure out, what are the action steps to get there? Now, in the workplace, sometimes it makes sense at that time. Sometimes you save it for later or simply skip it. You can ask, how can this be prevented in the future? This is used when there's a problematic issue that keeps reoccurring. And you simply ask that so you take a proactive approach to prevent it happening again. These questions take the focus on the problem and very quickly move it to a focus on the solution and moving forward. The power of that in the workplace is amazing because instead of people running around worried about problems, putting out fires, etc., they're proactively moving toward what it is you want to accomplish. A third element of communication is the questions. Now, those of you who have done coach training have heard these tips. They're absolutely powerful. This is the difference between ineffective questions and questions that really support people moving forward. The first piece to it is keep it short and simple. The shorter the question and the simpler the question, the more powerful the question. Here's the reality. For those of you that do coaching, when you ask a long, complex question, whoever you ask it of has to stop whatever else they're doing and attempt to figure out what you're asking so they can respond to it. It literally interrupts their thinking. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm supposed to sound clever or something, no, just keep it short and simple, because our short, simple questions really get right to the heart of the matter, and they move the conversation forward quickly and effectively. Another important element about questions is that they have a forward focus. Instead of asking about the past or what's already happened, which is going to get us stuck in the mud again, ask about the future, where people want to go and how they want to get there, because that's what we have the opportunity to influence and control. Ask questions that are open to possibility. This is a challenge for so many of us. We're used to asking questions where we think we know the answer or we have a pretty good idea of where it's going to go. You know, it's a great coaching question when you have absolutely no clue where it's going to go and you're surprised by the answer. That's a fabulous coaching question. So it's truly open to what the possibilities are. When you ask a question, if the person you are asking is primarily logic in their thinking, then ask using logic language. If somebody is primarily emotion in their thinking, ask emotion language questions. So for a logic person, you'll say, what do you think? For an emotion person, you say, how do you feel about it? That way, it's easier for them to answer because you're speaking their language. So I'm seeing a hand up, Charmaine. I am also seeing that in order for me to unmute you, you've got to enter your audio pin. So if you enter that on your phone and you want to come in with a question, I can unmute you. I'm going to put your hand down for now, so you raise it again if you do want to do that. And happy to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to keep going. If somebody is a passive communicator, they like to think silently, and holding the space, being quiet, is giving them the space to think. If somebody is an aggressive communicator, they like to think out loud. That means they want to talk through several possibilities before they figure out which one is going to be the right answer. Very often, whatever somebody says to you gives you the next question. You simply take their answer and make it a question. When you ask a question, be confident in that person and in their ability. So, for example, if I say to somebody, what do you think you might want to try to do? I'm hesitant, I'm doubtful, I lack confidence or conviction. If I say to somebody, what do you want to do? I believe in their ability to actually do it and to make it happen. There's a huge difference. Demonstrating confidence in the way we ask the question is absolutely essential. Linda, I see your hand up, so I'm going to unmute you. What's your question, Linda? Linda, are you there? Okay, I'm not hearing you. I don't know if that means the microphone's not connected. I'll mute you again. If you want to type your question into the question panel, I'm happy to answer it that way. Or if you get your mic figured out, raise your hand again and I'll do that. All right. The last tip for you on questions, and this is so important. And here's the funny thing, the irony of it. Many of us want to be clever and creative and unique and different in our approach to questions. And so we try and figure out different ways to say it. And then we start asking questions that start with is, any, can, do, will, all of which are automatically close-ended questions. So when you ask a question, ask the question with what or how. Because a what or how question is most likely to be open. And that's your key to keeping it truly open. Okay, Linda, thanks for typing in your question. She said, can I give an example of how an answer gives the next question? Yes, absolutely. If somebody says, I want to exercise more. That's their answer. The question becomes, how do you want to exercise more? So I literally took one of my two words, what or how, and I put it in front of what they said, and it became their question. If it's in the workplace and somebody says, I want to get this project done on time, I can say, how do you want to get this project done on time? And I put my what or how in front of what they said. Hopefully that got you there, Linda. Let me know. In the meantime, what we've covered here is a coaching style of communication. That means listening. It means that being solution focused, and it means asking powerful questions. Good, Linda. Glad that worked for you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about people skills, because if you're going to have a coaching style of management, people skills are a huge piece of it. Now, you're probably familiar with some of the different assessment tools. There's the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the Berkman, there's the Strength Finders, there's Colors, there's all kinds of tools out there for doing a full-blown assessment. The tremendous value of those different assessment tools is that deeper understanding, analysis of each person and how they are. I'll give you an example. Everyone who's graduated, you have an assessment panel where you can give, for example, the DISC at wholesale, $26. If you take that into the workplace, and each person in the workplace is taking that DISC profile, then you can, for free, pull a team report. And that team report will help you in terms of how the people on the team work with each other. So you've got their individual personality assessment, and you've got how to have everybody working together as a team. Fabulous insight from those reports. Now, let's take that into what's going on as a coaching style of management. If somebody's in a leadership or management role, it's a great idea if they can do that with their team and really understand all of those different personalities, because here's the bottom line. We talked about the golden rule, and the golden rule is treat other people the way you want to be treated. Our challenge with the golden rule is that different people are different and they don't want to be treated the same way. So a truly effective leader is going to understand that it's about recognizing who they are and adjusting to them. Because when you adjust to the other person, you're more effective in your interaction with them. And that truly invites an effective conversation, engagement, etc. So a starting point for that, back to what we covered in class. One thing is to know whether people are emotion or logic. Because emotion people on your team, they want to talk about their weekend. They want to talk about how their day went, their family, their kids, their dog, whatever. It's so important to them to have that conversation first, because until you do, they don't feel like you have a good working relationship. Alternatively, if you have people on your team who are logic, they don't want to talk about the family or the weekend or those other things first. They want to talk about the job because that's what they're here and focused on. And so knowing which one it is for them helps you with how you approach the conversation and where you go in that conversation. And the reality is, the emotion people, you start with, hey, how are you in the weekend and that kind of thing. Then you move to the task. For the logic person, you start with the task, and then if there's time, you move to, hey, how was your weekend? So we use both. It's a matter of which one is going to be most effective at the front end of the conversation. Similarly, some people are passive and some people are aggressive. Passive communicators are more indecisive. They take time to think about things. Aggressive communicators decide quickly. They move fast. They think out loud. Both of them work, and there are pros and cons to each, and we all do both at different times. It's a matter of being aware at that time when you're interacting with people in the workplace and on your team. Are they passive or are they aggressive? Here's what we see happen. If somebody is aggressive in logic and they're in a leadership position and they ask an emotion passive person a question, the emotion passive person is thinking about it and figuring it out. And the aggressive person is getting impatient because they want the answer and they want to move on. And so you get a clash. And then alternatively, if the emotion passive person gets asked to do something, they will say yes. And the aggressive logic person will ask them to do things because they know they'll say yes. And then they'll ask too much and it's not even possible to get it done. And they're both frustrated with each other. And imagine the other difference. If somebody's passive in logic, they're really thinking and processing and they're taking time to move through things. If somebody's emotion and aggressive, they're talking out loud, they're having fun, they're all over the place. And they both bring value and they can easily butt heads. We also butt heads with people that are the same style. So it's this awareness. Who are they? And when you have that awareness, you know who they are, you know who yourself is, then and only then do you have the ability to adjust to them in that moment. That requires you to be self-aware, and it requires you to really pay attention to the other person. And of course, the impact, absolutely fabulous. It's powerful how you can enhance your engagements. Now, another piece of interacting with people is tied to their learning style. So 40% of the population are primarily auditory in their learning style. Or I'm sorry, visual in their learning style. 20% are primarily auditory, 40% are primarily kinesthetic. Again, we all use all of them. We're a combination of them. And the way we have a conversation is influenced by our learning style. So we know this makes a difference if somebody's in training. If your organization provides training, classes, etc., you're aware, okay, there are these learning styles, there are more, and we make sure we accommodate all of them. Because ultimately, for the learning experience, using all three of them is the most effective way to get the most out of the program. At the same time, in a conversation with somebody, recognizing their learning style helps you adjust to their pace and their language, and it makes that conversation flow more easily. It also helps you empower them because you invite them to describe the outcome using all three of these languages. Ultimately, when you invite people on the team to describe the ideal outcome using all three of these languages in their order of preference, then they make it real. And when it's real to them, they believe in it and they're motivated to make it happen. So our people skills are about recognizing, respecting, and adjusting to their personal style and working with their learning style. Both dimensions. All right, so I'm hoping things are sinking in so far. The comments I'm getting in the question panel are all about, hey, this is a good refresher and that kind of thing. So I'm glad that's helpful. I'm going to keep going. If you have a specific question, again, either raise your hand or type it down. So now I'm going to talk about goal setting. And one of the examples I often use in a class is this. Pretend you yourself are a travel agent and pretend I come to you and I want to book a trip. And when I talk to you about booking my trip, I say to you, well, okay, so I don't want to go to Hawaii. I don't want to go to Canada. I don't want to go to South America. I don't want to go to South Africa or whatever. And I start naming all the places I don't want to go. And you're sitting there looking at me going, okay, and how can I help you? Because you can't help me book a trip to where I don't want to go. So if you're that travel agent, you're saying, where do you want to go? Now, the irony of setting goals is that often we set goals that talk about what we don't want. We say, I don't want to be so stressed. I don't want to work so many hours. Okay, what do you want? What is your goal? Or we say, I want to lose weight. Okay, what's your goal? And get it defined. So, for example, we talk in class about the way people are thinking, their thought pattern. And some people will talk about what they're moving toward. So instead of saying, I want to lose weight, I'll say, I want to weigh this much. And I'll give the number I want to weigh. That means I'm talking about what I'm moving toward. If I say what I don't want, oh, I don't want to be so stressed, or I don't want to go on vacation here, I'm talking about what I'm moving away from. A coaching approach is to create that shift so that people talk about what they do want instead of talking about what they don't want. Typically, what they don't want is the problem, and they can get stuck there. So it's asking them about the do want. The example we use in class is, imagine running across the country and you have a support car behind you. And as you're running, you're thinking, okay, they're behind me. If there's a problem, they're right behind me. If I trip and fall, they're behind me. If there's an emergency, they're behind me. And guess what's happening? You're thinking about what's behind you and the problem or the potential problem. And then instead, if you have them drive out in front and you are thinking, okay, I'm going to run to you. My goal is to make it a mile down the road, and then you can go ahead the next mile. And you keep that focus on where you're going. Then you're effective with your goal setting. And take that into the workplace. Imagine the impact. What is it we want it to be? Because then and only then can we focus on how to get there. When I say to you as a travel agent, I want to go to, and I tell you where I want to go, now you can book my trip. Ask people in the workplace what they do want. The next one is their source of motivation. When people are externally motivated, they're doing something for someone else or to avoid a consequence. And we're very used to this in the workplace. People do something so they don't get yelled at, so they don't get fired. We think money is the main factor. Yeah, money's important. There's a lot more to it. What we want to know is the internal motivation. What is their reason for doing it? What does it mean to them? How is this important in the workplace? Well, the bottom line is, if you work with an external motivation, you're going to have a short-term result. When you work with somebody's internal motivation, then and only then will you have the long-term impact. So in terms of people getting a project done, completing a task, it's important to identify what it means to them personally. And I'm not talking not getting yelled at or not getting fired or whatever. I'm talking about it'll feel good to accomplish that. They like checking things off the list. They feel proud of the work they're doing. They feel confident in accomplishing things. And there is tremendous value for them in getting it done. And when we take the time to explore what it means to them personally, it means we're valuing them, they're valuing themselves, and they're valuing the work that they're doing. That's a pretty easy win-win-win. What does it mean to them? So we want to ask for their internal motivation on whatever it is they're working on. So what roles do call for coaching skills? It's pretty easy for me to say all of them. Anybody out there? Here's the bottom line. I'm a better mother and grandmother because of learning coaching skills. It helps us in our leadership roles in the workplace. It helps us if you're a business owner, if you're a project manager, HR, a trainer, a teacher, a consultant, a counselor. Coaching skills make a difference. They're absolutely essential. So I am at the place now where I want to invite whoever it is that wants to come in and do a role play. What conversation do you want to have to practice. And I'll use the coaching skills. And you can be that challenging person that you got to have the conversation with, or somebody in the workplace that's challenging. And let's role play the conversation. So to let all of you know, I've got a lot of you here, and so far I'm not seeing any hands up or any comment in the question panel that you want to come in and role play. What I have remaining at this point is to review resources that are available to you. So I'm going to pause and give it a moment to make sure I'm responding to whatever questions you have and giving you the chance if you do want to role play. And then after a moment, I'll go ahead and jump back in and start covering the resources. In the meantime, I've got Linda back up there. Linda, I'm going to unmute you and see if your mic is working. I unmuted you on this end, Linda, and you've got yourself on mute. So just, there you go. Are you live? Linda, I'm not hearing you, so I'm not sure if there's not a microphone connected or what it is. I'm happy to have you type into the question panel if you have a question. I'm wondering if you were wanting to role play and I just can't hear you to be able to do that. If somebody else has one, let me know. I'm going to go back to some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time. So one question that was asked is, are organization leaders appreciating the value of a professionally trained coach versus someone who has simply deep industry experience? And I'm going to say yes. Here's what we're finding. It used to be that literally anyone got hired as a coach for the organization. Increasingly, when organizations are hiring coaches, in addition to asking, hey, do you have any training at all? They're asking, are you part of the International Coach Federation? And now, even more, we're hearing them ask, are you credentialed with the International Coach Federation? And we have a coaching firm where we put people in those coaching roles. And here's what we find out. We have companies saying as a minimum standard, they want the coach to have a PCC credential. So excellent. Okay, so I'm seeing Kristen, and I'm attempting to see which Kristen, because I've got two Kristens here, and I'm not sure which one of you is, okay. There I go. I've got it figured out. So Kristen, I will unmute you so you can come in and do a role play with me. Thanks for volunteering, Kristen.
You're welcome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So what is your scenario you want to role play?
So the scenario I was thinking of is an assistant under me is not picking up the information that I'm giving her, and I need her to get it done, and I need things to happen, and they're not happening because she's really slow on picking up the tasks that I have put in front of her.
Okay. So you're going to be her and I'm going to be you, and we're going to have the conversation. Okay.
Okay.
Fabulous. All right. So hi, Kristen. How are you doing?
Good. Awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. So tell me what's going well with your role.
I think that I've got a handle on the project that you recently gave me. I'm not sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, but I think I've got it.
Okay. Okay. That's good to hear. And when you said you think, I'm hearing some hesitation. So let's review that. One thing that I notice you're doing really well, and Kristen, whatever it is that I can give her that she's doing well, I'm going to do it, because it's so important to start with affirming her and her effort first. Okay. Then what I will do is say, and Kristen, what are the areas where you're really not sure about?
And you want me to keep role playing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry, I stepped in and out on that one, didn't I?
Okay. I'm not sure I've actually entered the data in the appropriate places on the spreadsheet. I think I did, but I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, great. Well, let's take a look at it because that is one area I noticed as well. So I'm really glad you're aware of it. Let's take a look at what data is going where and how to fix it.
Mm.
And then I'll do that with her.
Mm.
And then I can ask her, and now we'll step back into role playing. And what else do you want to work on?
I'd like to be more confident in this going forward so that I don't forget it.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And what works for you so that you are more confident?
Beautiful question. Um, so I think writing it down helps, but also like talking through it with somebody can also be very helpful for me.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So let's create a plan for making that happen. Now, recognizing how busy we both are, how about if we approach it this way? Kristen, if you'll create an outline of what the steps in the process are, and then let's schedule time and we'll go through your outline together and make sure you've got where it's right. And we'll talk about any changes to make to it. How does that sound?
That would be awesome.
Excellent. And are you seeing what I'm doing with this role play, Kristen?
Yeah, I am.
Tell me what you're noticing.
So it's more about what does she want, because assuming that she knows how she can do better, and then asking her what she needs in order to do that versus assuming she just needs to be taught one more time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And here's what's powerful about the process we're going through. So think about it this way. I started out by inviting you to share what's going well, and then I added to it. So I affirmed you and then invited you to identify the areas to work on. If there's something you don't identify that I'm thinking, oh, I want you to work on this, I can then introduce it. When you're done bringing up what you know you want to work on, I can say, Kristen, can I bring up one other area to work on? Or two other areas or whatever it is. And we can go through it and do the same thing. What are your options for making it work? How do you want to do that? And then I can support you in that.
Great.
What do you think the impact is?
Well, I focus on trust building. So first of all, she's going to trust me more.
There you go.
And secondly, she's going to be empowered to take on tasks on her own a lot more so that I don't have to be over her and constantly making sure it's happening.
Exactly. Yep. Fabulous. Are you feeling good about that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, excellent. I'll go ahead and put you back on mute. Mm-hmm. Thanks. And I'm going to invite others if you have additional questions. If somebody else has something you want to role play, let me know. In the meantime, if I go back to the questions that were submitted ahead of time, somebody asked about creating the coaching culture. And we do have, by the way, webinars where we've addressed that. They're on our YouTube channel. If I give you a really short answer, it's this. It's got to start at the top. So when the top buys into it, that trickles down and spreads out. So how do you start it at the top? Well, the good news is it's become such a common thing and in so many organizations that really any large organization, if they don't have a program, they're getting behind the eight ball. And so you can bring them the research and the statistics on the value and the return on investment for coaching. So that's a starting point. Oftentimes the people at the top do get it. Many of them have executive coaches. Of course, they're thinking, yeah, we're not going to spend the money on an executive coach for every frontline person on the team. We simply can't. So then it's about talking about the process for a coaching program. We have a white paper on this, and I'm happy to send it to you if you send me an email asking for it. And in that white paper, here's what we know. You want external training for internal coaches. A best practice is to have internal coaches for entry-level to mid-level management. In other words, people inside the organization, most commonly in the HR, talent development, org development areas, that are literally trained to be coaches and provide coaching services to people throughout the organization. When you are really brilliant about it, and I've had fun doing this with a couple of organizations, you take that to the next level. You start by training the coaches, and eventually you have training on the coaching skills for everybody in the organization. It becomes a standard when they're onboarding, their ongoing professional development, etc., because the return on investment is so huge. And you spread it out. Yes, you're going to continue to have external coaches for your very high level leaders. That is the best practice, because for your high level leaders, they've got to have somebody outside the organization they can have those conversations with. So that's your basic flow, if you will, for building that coaching culture. I'm hoping that also answered, somebody asked the question about building the case for leaders to adopt that coaching style. I'm hoping what we covered here, the statistics, and even that quick answer for building a coaching culture, actually support you having that information, because it really is all the same. Very quickly, for all of you, resources that are available for you. Do check out what is offered at the International Coach Federation. They have a lot of fabulous continuing education programs, discussion groups, conferences, research, etc. Of course, if you're looking for coach training, do check out Center for Coaching Certification. And if you are looking for support with a coaching program, whether you want to hire those external coaches or you want support creating a coaching program, the Center for Coaching Solutions is available to you. So the International Coach Federation website is coachfederation.org. Check that out. The Center for Coaching Certification is at coachcert.com. The Center for Coaching Solutions is within the Center for Coaching Certification. And the reason for that is because we have graduates that are absolutely fabulous at what they do as coaches, and we draw on them to provide coaches. Do feel free to reach out and ask more questions about what is available to you and offered there for internal coaching programs or for hiring coaches. Do check out our other resources in terms of information. So we have a blog, coachingblog.coachcert.com. We also publish a book once a year, and the chapters are written by graduates of the program, every one of them an expert in their own area, and there is some fabulous content in these chapters. Plus, we do have free monthly webinars. Now, that's an opportunity in two ways. One is if you ever want to guest present, let me know. We love having guest presenters. And then two, of course, for your own continuing education opportunity. We do a 60-minute program every other month, and we do 30-minute programs every single month. So lots of opportunities there. We publish them in the newsletter. They are also listed on the website under resources. If you want to have a quick check-in, a quick question answered, that kind of thing, you can call or email for that. We can schedule time to have a conversation, or if it's something that can be answered via email, we can do that. If you are interested in outsourcing for your coaching programs, let us know. We can help with the program itself, with the training, with providing the coaching. What's next for you? Well, ultimately, that's going to be up to you. One thing we do offer is if you have interest in more information on coaching program support, coaches, or coach training, happy to schedule time and have that conversation with you. Beyond that, the piece that's up to you, it's you defining your own action plan. For those of you that have done coach training, go back to your materials and review them. The more you do that, the more it becomes normal and natural. Be intentional with your application of the skills. So just like we talked about examples here, be intentional with what you're doing with it. If you've done the initial training, for example, some of you have completed the professional coach level, do consider going on and completing the master coach, etc., so that you can qualify for ICF membership and move on from there. And if you're interested in engaging a coach individually, let us know. We're happy to help with referrals, etc. And of course, with the coaching program support. So based on the questions that were submitted ahead of time and what I'm seeing in the panel, I believe I've covered everything. If you have additional questions, let me know. And I do want to say thank you to all of you. I appreciate you investing your time here with us today. Do let us know what else we can do to be helpful. So thank you, everyone. And I'm getting your thanks in the comment box, so I appreciate that. I will go ahead and close out the recording and look forward to connecting with all of you again in the future. So take care.